You don't want to pay more than your fair share of property taxes, and you probably just got your assessment in the mail, unless you're in Fulton County, and it's going to be there any day. Welcome to the Landis Look, where we take an inside look at the world of real estate. And today I'm here with my good friend and attorney, Hap Richardson, to talk about property tax assessments and appeals. Hap, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is super fun. I wish we could talk about something fun like the Hawks. But let's dive into property taxes.
You don't think property taxes are more fun than the Hawks?
Well, whenever I'm at a wedding, I tell people I'm a property tax attorney, and then they talk to my wife for the next 3 hours. So
how did you get into property taxes? How did you become a property tax attorney?
Well, I wanted to play third base for the Atlanta Braves, but I got cut from the Middle Valley All-Star team. So I decided to try hard in school. And in 2010, there was a political campaign to make the city of Brookhaven a city, because one of the reasons was they could spend the property tax money more efficiently than DeKalb County. So I lived there and I was like, I wonder how much I pay in property taxes. So the very first appeal was my own house. And now it is the only thing I do. We were just talking about it. I've been to over 50 different counties in Georgia.
50 counties. Nice.
I mean, I've done everything from a mobile home to a hospital, lots of restaurants, and of course, tons of single family homes.
Yeah, and nobody wants to overpay on their property taxes, but it actually happens a lot. So, I mean, maybe start with your disclaimer and then tell us a little bit about how the property tax valuations work and how people can appeal them if they don't agree with them.
Sure. Well, the first thing they teach you in law school is to always give a disclaimer. So I'll give a disclaimer that the opinions expressed here today belong to me, and my information, I think, will be posted in this podcast or somewhere. And I'd love to talk to you about your specific property, because that is one of the issues. Is each piece of real estate is unique. And the county uses what they call a mass appraisal system. Well, sorry, let me back up 1 second. Each county has a tax assessor, and his job is to value each piece of real estate every single year at the amount a willing buyer would pay a willing seller in an arm's length transaction as of January 1st. So that is a really hard job.
That is an impossible job to get those right. Yes.
And that's one of the reasons every county in Georgia has sent them out this year, except for Fulton, because Fulton is different than every other county in Georgia. Yeah. It's way bigger. But one of the problems with the mass appraisal system is they don't walk through everyone's house. So, and that is the difference in real estate valuation, is the finishes, is the backyard, is the street get a ton of traffic? Yeah. There are so many weird things that could affect the value one way or another that it's difficult for them to pick up. And I will say the county appraisers try to get this right. Yeah. And they work really hard at it. And whenever you and I are discussing one of my appeals, you always say, oh, well, that property is an anomaly. And I had to Google anomaly to see what that meant. But then I figured out that, yeah, most of the properties I deal with are anomalies. It's the weird ones that the computer models can't pick up something that's going on. And the appeal process helps the appraisers to sort that out.
So if you get an assessment and you see the value and you're like, hey, I'm not sure that this is right, you can appeal it. And so, I mean, maybe everyone doesn't even know that, but I mean, you can appeal it. And if you decide you want to do that, how does that work?
Yeah, you have 45 days from the day the annual notice of assessment is mailed to file an appeal. And it comes in just a plain white envelope, and I don't check my mailbox anymore. So it's also posted online, fortunately. And you can find out what the county thinks a willing buyer would have paid a willing seller as of January 1st. And if it just looks wrong or feels wrong, you can hire someone like myself, or lots of people do this on their own, and I encourage them to. It's kind of fun. You get a meeting with a county appraiser in a conference room. He says, I think your house is worth this much, and here's why. And you get a chance to say, well, I think it should be lower because we haven't remodeled our kitchen in 20 years and my wife thinks the cabinets are horrible, right? And they will make adjustments. So you can't appeal your income taxes, but you can fight your property taxes. Even if I think people have a general idea of what their house is worth. So when people call me, it just smells wrong.
Yeah.
They just looked at that notice and said, this just doesn't feel right.
I mean, do the county, do they hate when people appeal? Is it possible to win these? I mean, can you get them changed? How often are they changed? Tell us a little bit about how they, like, the insider view into it.
Well, there are people who find out about this and they appeal every single year. And part of the form is you have to write what you think the value of your property is. Mm-hmm. And some people write $1 on the form every single year. And to me, that's not really negotiating. That's kind of being a jerk.
Yeah.
But if the valuation, there's something in the computer model that is causing an error in the valuation, if you can figure out what that is, then you can win your appeal. And it is difficult for the county to keep up with everything that's going on at every piece of property. So there are, I don't know, I sincerely believe they get 95+% of them right.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there's 100 million parcels in Georgia. So that's quite a few.
Still a lot that are not right. Yeah. Right. I mean, what's the biggest key to a successful appeal? You get that, it doesn't seem right, you're pretty sure it's not right. I mean, what's the biggest key to doing this process correctly and successfully?
I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is, especially CPAs, not a pick on CPAs, but they will bring in a 140-page presentation they've prepared about their property. And if you do that, you lose. And they get extremely mad because they have spent time preparing a 140-page presentation. They will give you 5 to 10 minutes to explain what is wrong with their valuation. And if you can make your points succinctly without screaming, and if there's something wrong, they like to fix it. They try to get these right.
Awesome. And so what happens if you do win? So how does that impact your assessment moving forward? And I mean, obviously your taxes from that.
Sure. So the amount you pay in property taxes is the assessment times the millage rate. And you cannot appeal the millage rate. That's set by the politicians. So you're appealing the assessment. If you get it reduced, then the amount you pay is reduced proportionally.
Mm-hmm. Is that locked in for any time, or that's why people do it every year? Will they just change it right back up the next year?
So Georgia has a unique law that if you file an appeal, whether you win or lose, that value is frozen for 3 years. And I think one of the reasons they have that law is so people don't appeal every single year. Because in Texas, there's no state income tax. They don't have the 3-year freeze rule. Property tax appeals are a gigantic industry. And at weddings, everyone thinks I live in Dallas because there are tons of property tax lawyers there because people appeal every single year. Yeah. And historically in Georgia, they have not changed the property tax values every year. And part of the reason was not that long ago, someone used to drive around in a pickup truck and take a picture of every piece of real estate. And that's how they corrected data. So that's why.
Thank heavens for Google Street View. Boy, hope that's gotten better.
It has. Sometimes you can see yourself on Google Street View. It's really fun. At the hearings, I pull up the satellite and it actually helps to point out, hey, there's a creek in this backyard.
Yeah.
That's why this house should be worth less than the others in the neighborhood. And before Google Street View, they would always look at me like, are you sure?
All right. So Hap, I know you're not in the business of losing appeals, but if someone does lose an appeal, what then? Can they actually raise your assessment? Could you go in there fighting for a lower assessment and they're actually like, hey, as we took a closer look, we think it should be higher? Is there any risk of that?
So there is a very small risk of that, and it happens in Grant Park is a good example of where it may happen. If the county is still valuing your house as a one-story 1920s ranch and you have added a second story, and let's say you did everything right, you pulled a building permit, you got a certificate of occupancy after it was over, but for some reason the tax records never picked up your second story addition. And if they're valuing your house at $250,000 as a brick ranch and you appeal, they might come out, notice the second story, and raise your valuation. So when people do call me and want to appeal in that situation, and what I tell them is, don't poke a bear. If a bear is near you, you don't poke it. You just let it be, right? So because of that 3-year freeze law, people with an extremely low valuation will try to appeal and get it locked in. Because the county is catching up.
Yeah.
And it's like those movies from the 80s where the computers were taking over the world.
Yep.
We're at the point in the movie where you can still kind of beat the computer, but every year it's getting smarter. So eventually the only way to beat it is to unplug it. But hopefully we won't get to that point until I'm old enough to retire.
Oh man, Hap, thanks for all the info. And for everybody listening, if you got your assessment and it feels wrong, you're not sure about it, I mean, we've got Hap's contact info here for you, and he would love to help you evaluate, hey, should you appeal that assessment? What's it take to do that? Help you do that, like he has literally helped thousands of other people do it. And so, Hap, thanks for sharing your knowledge today. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Before I go, real quick, the most important thing is to check that you have the homestead exemption on the house that you live in.
Great.
On that assessment notice, above the value and to the right, in a box about the middle of the page, it says homestead, and you want it to say yes or some code. If it's a code, it's which type of homestead exemption you have, but it is a huge discount on your primary residence. Yeah. And I talk to people every year who literally it is costing them over 20 grand just because they never filled out the homestead form. So that
we just had a good friend we were talking about with that, and the time period for that has already passed this year. So you might as well go ahead and do it. You can't retroactively get it, but go ahead and do it if you see that for sure. That's great advice. Thanks, Hap.
No problem, Justin. This is super fun. It's good to see your basement. Sorry,
yeah, you got a better seat. You've got a much better seat than me, man. Better view than this basement. But
yeah, I'm at Freedom Parkway.
Yeah, you just got your chair set up right there, outdoor office. So, all right, thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you guys next week, and a big thanks to Hap. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Bye-bye.